DC Multiverse!
Robin! So today, I figured we would take a little quick peek at the upcoming Tim Drake Robin action figure from McFarlane Toys. This is the gold label version. When you look at this figure up close, you can actually tell that there's going to be a regular release, and it's going to be the basic, classic-looking Tim Drake. How can you tell? Well, look at those shoulders. Those are short sleeves. And these gloves, well, they should be green. Which tells me that this middle piece here where the elbow is, that's going to be skin color. Also, the oval on the chest where the R is currently placed, well, the one that's there is a circle. But we know that the classic R, that's an oval. So all the sculpting is there that there's going to be a regular release. I'm sure that the regular release won't have this particular utility belt because it's nothing like the original classic Tim Drake suit. Now, before we look any closer, let's point out that this Tim Drake comes with an action figure stand, a bow staff, a batarang, and of course, a trading card. The trading card and the back of the box actually show what this suit really looked like. It was a lot less detailed in comparison to what we have in front of us as a figure. For those of you who are just curious about the bio, you can pause to read this here if you like, and if not, then we'll move on. Now, the fun thing about this Robin is it has a very interesting Tim Drakey head sculpt with the hair that kind of stands up everywhere. That was one of my favorite things about the original Tim Drake hairstyle. The paint apps are pretty neat. The eyes aren't exactly where they're supposed to be, but they're close enough for me. If I had one nitpick going forward, I would say I really hope that the other version of Tim Drake, which will eventually be coming out, doesn't have this mask, because Tim Drake in this era only had a domino mask. He didn't have the points up top. The cape over the shoulders, I think it's probably supposed to be glued on and sit right there in the middle. I can adjust that myself. It's spiky down the bottom, and it's got the lines that go all the way up and fits over the shoulders here. And it's not the softest rubber, but not the hardest. It's somewhere in between. And of course, the inside of this cape is yellow. The details all in the torso of this suit and the clasps that hold the center together, I feel like this is really Todd doing his own, I'm going to add some detail thing. And when the other version comes out, it'll be really neat to see this in green. I would say don't go ahead and paint this because there will be another release, like for sure. The glove details, you know, again, Todd has definitely done a little bit of his own thing here, but I think that the general idea has been kept. And I could say the same thing for his boots here. You know, these are definitely more detailed than what we would have seen in the comic book back in the day, but the toes are definitely still there. That's cool that he made the toe boots and didn't forget that detail. Here is Robin in comparison to a couple McFarlane Toys Batmans. And just for funsies, here he is in comparison to some other Tim Drake Robins. The next question for me, though, is how articulated is this Robin? Well, McFarlane Toys, they use the ball joint in the neck, and you know, that's all right. I'd say that's about average. It's not super articulated, but yeah, that's definitely acceptable. The torso is the point that I am the most wondering about, because these ab, I was gonna say ab muscles, but it's more like these bits of ab armor. They definitely, yeah, that's what I thought. They're definitely going to get in the way to a point, but you can maneuver the torso past. And then that's pretty much what he's going to get for the whole downward crouchy thing, which is typically not Todd's strong suit as far as articulation, because they usually get a good amount of roundy motion and side to side and even back from the torso. Just front is never Todd's strong suit as far as action figure design for articulation. He's got the sockets right here, and he also has the rounded hinge, which that's the socket. That's what you get there. Can you get a nice T-pose? Almost. Can we jam them up a little bit higher? Yeah, I guess so. And then, of course, he's got a bicep swivel here right at the bottom of the sleeve. And double jointed elbow. That crunches up nicely. And there's going to be a rounded hinge in the wrist, of course. Then you've got the waist. The waist is tight, but 360. The groin is very, very, very mobile. No problem with that whatsoever. What does he... Ooh, very little in that way. We need to start having either a thigh cut or really just better articulation inside the socket. They need to start doing maybe a little bit perhaps of what Mafex does with the inside socket there, because then there would be plenty of articulation. This is abysmal. Then you got the knees, double jointed, as pretty much always very articulated, and the ankles rounded hinge and toe articulation there on top of the pivot. So I think that he's definitely a fairly articulated figure. Could be better in some ways, but definitely could be perhaps a lot worse. So what do I think about Tim Drake Robin? Well, you know, I definitely like the color scheme. I feel like I'm going to have to find some way to customize this guy to get rid of the sleeves because they just look out of place. They just look wrong. But after that, I think he'll be just a fantastic figure for sure. I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely more excited for a classic looking Tim Drake Robin, but this guy will look good A, as a placeholder until he comes, and then B, with certain Batman figures. I'm also a big fan of having Batman and Robins posing together. And this figure stands out really, really well. He's very bright, and he's a different kind of red that we haven't seen Todd use on any of his figures yet. There's almost kind of like a very warm, fiery orange inside of this red. Is it completely accurate? Heck no. This suit is way more detailed than what he was wearing when it was red, and in many ways, it really is just obvious that because Todd had to sculpt so many new parts for this, which means there's a lot more steel, he just wanted to get his money's worth. And hey, I can't blame him, and I'm glad that he chose to do this version of Robin. And I'm about 75% happy with him. It would be more like 90 if the shoulders, again, weren't so obviously not made for this figure. But anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Hopefully you found this video to be an interesting, insightful, useful waste of time, and I will see you with the next one. Have yourselves a DC day, everybody, and please take care. Bye now.